Off the Hook, airing on offthehooksports.com. Your home for real news, real opinions, and what really matters about Tennessee athletics. The Off the Hook podcast at offthehooksports.com or Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or wherever you go for your favorite podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, iHeart. Like, share, follow, subscribe. Off the Hook with Dave Hooker starts now.
Well, we certainly would appreciate it if you click that subscribe or like button so we can be a part of your day. With Chris Landry, I'm Dave Hooker. It's Chalk Talk, brought to you by Owl's Nest Barbecue and, of course, Steve Ray's Midnight Oil, a proud Michelin distributor. So we've got a lot to get to, but we're going to talk about defense because everybody wants to talk about offense, but we're going to talk about defense. I know Steve Ray would appreciate that because defense wins championships. Well, maybe still, but we can discuss that, Chris. It's not like it used to be. I don't think you're going to see Tennessee hold anybody scoreless like they did back in 1921, I believe.
I think it was, yeah. Unscored upon, unbeaten, untied, unscored upon. That's, but when you were punting on third down in most cases, it was a different game at that time.
That's very true. Best or the defensive players that you think are key for Tennessee, and I'm talking specifically about the returning guys. Who do you think Tennessee would like to see take a step up mightily?
Well, I think Jeremy Banks, Byron Young, Aaron Beasley come to mind. I think Jalen McCullough and Trevon Flowers at safety. I think those are the guys that just kind of jump out at me and say those are keys. We've talked a little bit about the defense, being able to have multiple guys that can push the pocket, defend the run from the inside to allow the two edge guys to get upfield and generate pass rush. I think the linebacker play has a chance to be pretty good. The secondary is very important, particularly since with this offense, you're going to score a lot of points and a lot of people are going to be throwing on you. So your pass rush, defending the run on early downs, but the pass rush and pass coverage are just so very important. Think of this, that the sub packages, and this is the case for most teams now, most people's sub packages are your base, meaning you're playing. People always say, who's the two corners, who's the two safeties? That's not 60% of the snaps. It is three corners, two safeties, and two linebackers. And particularly when you score a bunch of points and you're going to have to play that. So to me, depth in the secondary, coverage ability without being a liability against the run or a liability from a physical standpoint, because people will run at you when you're small. But if you're down by 21 points, you sometimes don't have to worry about defending the run as much. They're going to be chunking it all across the place.
Yep, good point. I think Tennessee's pass rush can be pretty good. And
yes,
I think they had about 34 sacks last year, which was like bottom half of the SEC. I think it was 8th or 9th. But really, they're just, and I say just, but they're just 6 away from being third best in the SEC. Can they make that sort of jump this year with the guys they've got, you think, Chris?
I think they can. I think another guy to look out for that is Tyler Barron. I think somebody that's, he had the injuries in the sophomore year, but he's a guy that's got a lot of TFL capabilities, a lot of sack capabilities, pressure capabilities. So I think he can be somebody that can help. Juwan Mitchell is somebody that has a lot of ability, that can really help on the edge. So I think the pass rush can be really good. Let me say this too. The secondary and the pass rush work in unison. Most of the time, it's the pressure up front that leads to better play in the back because you don't have to cover as long. But when you can cover a little bit better, sometimes those initial pressures where the quarterback steps out becomes, I got to hold it because the coverage is there. So as we talk about pass rush, I think somebody like Tamarian McDonald, Theo Jackson did a really good job. Tamarian McDonald is somebody that can really help him on the back end, and maybe even Christian Charles. So those are guys that I think Back on the defensive line, I would say Bryson Eason is a guy to look out for. D. Williams on the back end. So I think those are some other guys on the defensive side that I think can be. We'll see how much of an impact they can be, but if it's positive, I agree with you. I think they can have consistent pass rush. Now, do you have the depth? That's why I mentioned some of these other guys. Can you be as good in the fourth quarter when you got to rush the passer more and more because you got to lead? Can you be as effective doing it? And can you hold up in coverage? That's why the depth in the front and the back is really good. It's got to be really good. But I think this defense can be better. But you've heard me say this a million times. I think also your offense can be your best defense. Is when you got to lead, can you work underneath? Can you keep the clock moving? Can you keep your defense fresh? All those things I think are important when you got 17-point leads in the third quarter. If you're going to go fast pace all the time, your defense is going to leak. It's going to leak a little oil. Now, maybe you got enough oil built up to where even with a leak, you're still going to win. But against the best teams, you got to come up a little bit better defensively. In order to do that, you've got to have some ability to run it and play that 4-minute offense, throttle down your offense. Not that you're not trying to score. That's not the point. Is You're trying to score, but you're trying to eat more clock in the process on the way to scoring. If you do that, there's nothing more devastating in football is when you have a lead, you get the ball, and you go on a 4, 5, 6-minute drive and you score 7. It debilitates, it deflates an opponent. If you score really quickly, everybody's excited. But the defense, says, our offense gets back on the field and they score again. All of a sudden, you come back and you have a mishap on offense, you fumble it, boom, you're back in the game. And you say, well, didn't we have a 21-point lead? Yeah, it's now 7, because your offense didn't keep up. So I think that's an important part that I always think needs to be brought out when talking defense is how you play offensively.
Let me ask you specifically, easy for me to say, about Jeremy Banks. I do want to remind everybody that Chalk Talk brought to you by Owl's Nest Barbecue. Owl's Nest Barbecue has all the sauces and rubs you could possibly need, and they have the wood chips. They also have the wood pellets if you like to use the automated smoker like I do, and they've got the grills, the Green Mountain grills. And right next door is Steve Ray's Midnight Oil, a proud Michelin distributor. Steve Ray's Midnight Oil will take care of your car. So Jeremy Banks, Tennessee linebacker, as of today, where does he rank among the better linebackers in the SEC?
Oh, I think he's in that upper tier group. I think he's outstanding. I think he's got good instincts. I mean, you got to have. There's a lot of things. The two main things you got to have at linebacker. Certainly, athleticism to play is one. But to me, if you don't have instincts and you don't have toughness, I just, you're going to have a hard time for me. He's got those things and he can run. So he can make plays in space in pursuit. He has good understanding of be able to step over trash, use his hands. Use his hands. I think those things are really important. We talked about it on the show Monday, and we were talking a little bit about the Cincinnati Bengal game, and it was about the Kayvon Thibodeau issue and the block. That issue, that's the one story that's not being talked about is how Kayvon Thibodeau didn't play that block very well. And that's a part of it. And I will save the deeper conversation for another day. But being able to step over trash, see it without looking down at it, peripherally see it, so you keep the eye on the ball carrier, but you don't get swamped up in the what we call the trash at your leg, the blocks, the low blocks. And to keep it up, he does that a very good job. He takes good angles, so and he's got good pursuit speed. So I think he's a leader. I think he's a really good player, and I expect him to have a very good year. And certainly somebody that offensively, when you come to the huddle, you got to make sure where he's lined up. He can impact the game in a big way.
Chris, who are you hearing in terms of the other linebackers that could flank him, or one linebacker, since pretty much play nickel? You mentioned that pretty much play nickel all the time. You can't even play a 4-3 in Madden anymore. Not that I'm upset about it, Chris, but yes, I'm upset about it. But go ahead and tell me, who are the other linebackers that might see some significant playing time with Jeremy.
Yeah, I think Juwan Mitchell is a guy that has a chance to be really good. I mean, I think they've got good backers, but I think that in terms of who can really step up and have an impact and help them, I think he's somebody that I'm most intrigued by. I think the other guys are good. I think they could play and could be very effective, but I think Juwan Mitchell's somebody that's a wild card. And again, coming off the injury and been a little bit limited, we'll see. But young guy that can run. Um, I mean, I thought he played very well for Texas. He's a really good player for them.
And last thing, your thoughts on the defensive tackle position. We talk a lot about Tennessee wants to be vertical. They want to rush the passer, but just your thoughts on the interior guys.
I think that the group is pretty good. And if I were to look at the defensive front, I'm comfortable with the edge players. And maybe not so much the depth. We'll see. But I think the edge players can get upfield and cause havoc. The key to the defensive line is the defensive tackle play. You got to be able to control the line of scrimmage. It's fine to push the pocket. The defensive tackles, unless you're Aaron Donald types in a one gap scheme that are constantly penetrating, those guys are the unsung heroes because they kind of clog the middle. They make it tough to run in the A and B gaps, and it frees up the ends to really do what they do best, and that's rush the passer. They kind of basically create the freedom for those guys to do what they do on the outside. So I think I thought they had a pretty good production last year. At times it was really good. At other times it leaked a little bit. That's going to be the key, I think, for the defensive front, maybe the entire defense, is how well you play that at the defensive tackle position to control the line of scrimmage and allow everybody else to have the success that they need to.
Chris, after a long summer, next week we will be in football season, full bore, not the week 0 stuff, although I do appreciate that, and not preseason, although I don't appreciate that. But we'll be in full bore college football. We'll be previewing Tennessee's first opponent, so that should be a lot of fun in the season opener on a Thursday night. So he's Chris Landry. I'm Dave Hooker. This is a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.